Why is it that the most spiritually aware souls are born into the most painful families? Sit with that question for a moment. It's one of those thoughts that doesn't leave you easily, because deep down, you've probably felt it. That strange paradox. How could a universe so wise, so intelligent, place an awakened mind inside a home filled with chaos, neglect, or pain? Why would light be born in the darkest places? Maybe you've wondered, did I deserve this? Was I meant to suffer? But the truth is far more mysterious and far more empowering. The universe doesn't place awakened souls in comfort. It places them in conflict. Because comfort never wakes anyone up, pain does. Pain is the universe's alarm clock. It shakes the soul and whispers, "Wake up, there's more to you than this." Alan Watts once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Think about that. The soul that feels everything, the one that questions everything, is not cursed. It's being shaped. Because in a world asleep, it takes fire to awaken consciousness. The awakened soul doesn't emerge from peace. It's forged in chaos. Like gold purified in heat or a diamond born from pressure, the soul learns to shine because it was surrounded by darkness. Maybe your family didn't understand you. Maybe you were the quiet one, the observer, the deep thinker. You felt things no one else seemed to notice. You tried to bring peace where there was conflict, love where there was coldness. But instead of being appreciated, you were misunderstood. That wasn't an accident. That was initiation. Because what if your pain was not punishment, but purpose? What if your suffering wasn't meant to destroy you, but to awaken you? What if your family, as broken as it may seem, was the perfect training ground for your soul's evolution? You were not born into chaos by mistake. You were born there because you were strong enough to transform it. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My pain awakened my power. Number 1. The cosmic reason for painful beginnings. There is no mistake in where you were born. The universe does not roll dice when it comes to the destiny of an awakened soul. Every painful beginning has a hidden pattern behind it, a divine structure woven into chaos. When a soul carries the potential for awareness, it cannot be placed in comfort, because comfort breeds blindness. Comfort keeps people asleep. But pain breaks illusions. It forces the mind to search, to question, to rise. This is why many awakened souls come from homes filled with emotional storms. They weren't being punished. They were being prepared. You see, a soul that is meant to bring light must first learn what darkness feels like. Without contrast, there is no clarity. Without shadow, there is no understanding of light. The universe teaches through polarity. It allows you to experience the absence of love, so you can recognize the real thing when it appears. It allows rejection, so you can discover your worth within yourself. It gives you chaos, so you can learn the meaning of inner peace. The pain of your early life was not random. It was sacred curriculum. It was the universe showing you what happens when unconsciousness rules over love, so that when your turn comes, you lead with awareness. Alan Watts once said, "The universe plays hide and seek with itself. The soul hides in pain, so it can rediscover its own light." That is the essence of your journey. The darkness of your family was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of your awakening. You were placed in the fire so that empathy could be born from your ashes. You were surrounded by misunderstanding so that you could understand. The reason your beginning was painful is because your soul's mission was powerful. You weren't sent here to repeat patterns. You were sent to reveal truth. Every wound, every scar, every night you cried alone, they were all codes, lessons, and initiations guiding you back to your divine awareness. Life never wastes pain. it recycles it into wisdom. When you realize that, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That is when the transformation begins. The stars can only be seen in darkness, and maybe, just maybe, that's why your soul chose such a dark sky, so your light could finally be seen. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My pain has purpose. Number 2, the family as the first mirror. Your family is not your enemy, it is your first mirror, the original classroom where your soul begins to recognize itself. Every smile, every argument, every wound from them reflects a hidden lesson about who you are and who you are not. The awakened soul often grows up surrounded by chaos, misunderstanding, and emotional coldness, not because it deserves it, but because that is the fastest way to awaken self-awareness. When you live in a house where love feels conditional, where affection turns into control, where silence becomes a weapon, you start to see what unconsciousness looks like up close. That mirror doesn't show beauty, it shows distortion. But in that distortion, awareness is born. You begin to realize what love isn't, and that becomes the seed of understanding what love truly is. The toxic family teaches through contrast. It reveals the cost of living asleep. It shows what happens when wounds rule over wisdom. You start noticing patterns, anger passed from father to son, fear inherited from mother to child, guilt traveling silently through generations, and as painful as it is to see, you become the observer of the entire cycle. The awakened soul doesn't just experience pain, it studies it. It looks into the eyes of dysfunction and begins to decode it. Why are they like this? Why can't they love properly? Why does it all feel so heavy? Those questions are not rebellion, they are awakening. They are the first sparks of light entering a dark room. Alan Watts once said, "You do not understand yourself by running away from your family. You understand yourself by observing what they reflect within you." When you stop fighting the mirror and start reading its message, something profound happens. You start seeing that their pain was never personal. They projected what they never healed. Their anger wasn't against you, it was against their own unhealed stories. You realize that your family's dysfunction is not your identity. It is your initiation. The moment that understanding sinks in, you stop trying to change them, and you start transforming yourself. You stop seeking validation and start creating peace within you. Learn to separate their chaos from your clarity. That's how the mirror becomes a teacher, by forcing you to see yourself through reflection, not reaction. You were not born to repeat your family's pain. You were born to recognize it and rise above it. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My family taught me awareness. Number 3, the birth of awareness through suffering. Suffering is not the end of awakening, it is the beginning. Every moment of pain, rejection, or emotional confusion that you faced growing up was not just hardship, it was initiation. The awakened soul learns to see meaning where others only see misery. When love becomes distorted, when warmth turns into coldness, when words cut deeper than silence, something inside you begins to stir. You start asking questions. Why does love hurt? Why does kindness disappear? Why do people destroy what they claim to care about? Those questions are not weakness. They are sparks of consciousness lighting up the darkness within pain, forces the mind to go inward. It breaks the surface and makes you search for truth beyond illusion. You start realizing that love without awareness becomes control, and care without consciousness turns into manipulation. That realization is not born from books. It's born from surviving emotional fire. Alan Watts once said, "To suffer without understanding is hell. To suffer and see through it is awakening. That is exactly what happens when your soul transforms pain into perception. You stop being the victim of your story and become the witness of your evolution. You begin to see that every heartbreak was polishing your soul like metal in fire. The heat didn't destroy you. It revealed your strength. You start noticing patterns in your reactions, how you protect your peace, how you respond to chaos, how you choose silence over argument. That awareness means your suffering has served its purpose. It has refined your energy into wisdom. The more you observe your pain without running from it, the more power you gain over it. You understand that feelings are not enemies. They are messengers guiding you back to balance. When you stop blaming the world and start listening to your inner voice, you begin to heal. That is the true birth of awareness, when your suffering becomes your teacher. You learn that growth is not always gentle. Sometimes it's brutal, raw, and lonely. But that loneliness teaches self-reliance. That confusion teaches clarity. That heartbreak teaches detachment. Every scar on your heart is proof that you have felt deeply, and through feeling deeply you have become awake. The pain you went through was never pointless. It was sacred preparation for your higher self. Remember this truth: fire doesn't destroy the metal, it refines it. You are that metal, and every trial you survived made you more radiant. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My pain made me wise. Number 4. Breaking the ancestral chain. Generational pain is one of the most invisible prisons humanity lives in. It passes silently through words, habits, and emotions, moving from parent to child like an unseen inheritance. Anger becomes tradition, fear becomes family culture, and guilt becomes the language of love. Most people never notice it, they just repeat it. But the awakened soul, the one who begins to see, becomes the interruption. You are not here to continue your family's suffering. You are here to end it. The moment you recognize that pattern, the chain begins to crack. Awareness itself is rebellion against unconscious repetition. You start to see that your parents weren't villains. They were carriers of their own unhealed stories. They acted from pain they never knew how to process. And now you stand at the crossroads to either become them or transform what they could not. Alan Watts once said, "You are under no obligation to be who you were yesterday." That truth is the essence of spiritual liberation. When you see the dysfunction, you are no longer trapped by it. You start making choices from consciousness, not conditioning. You begin responding with wisdom instead of reaction. You create space where silence once lived, and peace where tension once ruled. Breaking the ancestral chain doesn't mean rejecting your family. It means refusing to carry what doesn't belong to your soul. It means releasing the burden of inherited pain and turning it into awareness. You are not cursed by your family. You were chosen to transform it. You are the first one to see the pattern clearly, and that vision is what makes you the cycle breaker. Healing is not loud. It's quiet resistance, the kind where you stop yelling, stop blaming, and start understanding. You begin to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. You stop carrying pain that isn't yours and start creating peace that never existed before. That is ancestral healing, transforming darkness into wisdom. Every time you choose compassion over resentment, you rewrite your family's energy. Every time you respond with calm instead of chaos, you heal generations behind you and ahead of you. You are not your family's wound. You are its remedy. Their story may have been written in pain, but yours will be written in power. Remember this truth. You are the turning point in your bloodline. The past may have shaped you, but it no longer defines you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. The chain ends with me. Number 5. Redefining love and boundaries. In toxic families, love is often confused with control. People claim to care about you, yet their affection comes with conditions, guilt, or emotional manipulation. They say they love you, but what they really mean is, I want you to make me feel comfortable, even at the cost of your own peace. The awakened soul learns early that this isn't love. It's attachment disguised as care. Real love does not cage, it frees. It does not demand obedience. It nurtures growth. But to understand that, you often have to experience its opposite. Painful relationships teach what healthy ones look like. They become mirrors showing you the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. Alan Watts once said, "You can only love completely when you are free to leave." True love and freedom are inseparable. The moment you understand this, your entire definition of love begins to evolve. You stop chasing validation from people who only value your compliance. You start realizing that love without respect is dependency, not devotion. And so, you begin learning one of the hardest spiritual lessons. Love sometimes means walking away. Most people think staying proves strength, but sometimes leaving does. Walking away is not betrayal, it is protection. It's the act of choosing peace over chaos, self-worth over guilt. It's realizing that loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to harm you repeatedly. The awakened soul learns that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's sacred. Boundaries are the language of self-respect. They are invisible lines drawn not to push others away, but to keep your energy pure. You start saying no without shame. You start valuing silence over argument, and you begin choosing solitude over fake peace. This is how love matures. It becomes balanced, rooted in awareness, not emotion alone. You start seeing love not as something to beg for, but something to embody. The more you respect yourself, the more authentic your relationships become. People who truly love you will honor your boundaries. Those who don't will resist them. Either way, you gain clarity. Love without boundaries drains the soul, but love with awareness strengthens it. You learn to care deeply, yet remain free, to give without losing yourself. That's spiritual adulthood. The moment compassion meets self-protection. You no longer confuse tolerance with love or endurance with loyalty. You love from fullness, not from fear. And when you finally redefine love, your entire world transforms. Because you realize, real love never hurts your soul, it heals it. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My love has boundaries. Number 6. Understanding without attachment. There comes a moment in every awakened soul's journey when you stop trying to fix others and start understanding them instead. You realize that awareness isn't about changing people, it's about seeing them clearly without losing your peace. This is the birth of emotional detachment, not from coldness, but from wisdom. The more conscious you become, the less you need to control. You start observing your family's behavior from a higher perspective, seeing the pain behind their actions. Their anger came from fear. Their silence came from shame. Their manipulation came from emptiness. When that truth settles in, compassion begins to replace resentment. But compassion is not permission. Understanding does not mean tolerating what destroys your peace. Alan Watts once said, "To understand life, you don't cling to it, you flow with it." That same principle applies to people. You cannot awaken anyone by force. You can only embody the light that invites them to awaken themselves. So you stop arguing for your truth. You stop trying to convince them to see what you see. Instead, you move in silence, grounded and calm, knowing that your peace itself is the greatest lesson you can offer. Understanding without attachment means you can forgive without returning, love without losing yourself, and care without being consumed. You stop expecting apologies that will never come, and you stop seeking closure from those incapable of giving it. You begin to understand that closure doesn't come from people, it comes from acceptance. The moment you stop needing them to change, you reclaim your freedom. This detachment is not arrogance, it's maturity. It's the understanding that you can't heal in the same environment that broke you, and sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away with grace. Forgiveness becomes your quiet strength. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve peace. Every grudge you release becomes space for your light to grow stronger. The awakened soul no longer fights the darkness. It simply shines through it. You realize that your family's pain is their path, not your responsibility. You can love them from afar while protecting your energy up close. That's what it means to love consciously. To hold compassion in your heart, but boundaries in your hands. When you master that, no one can emotionally enslave you again. You become free from the need to please, from the desire to prove, from the burden to fix. You simply exist in truth, peaceful, aware, unshakable. Understanding without attachment is the highest form of wisdom because it keeps your heart open while keeping your mind clear. Remember this, you can forgive in your heart and still protect your peace. Both are acts of love, one toward them, one toward yourself. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose peace over control. Number 7, transformation from darkness to light. There comes a sacred turning point in every awakened soul's journey. The moment you stop seeing your past as punishment and start recognizing it as preparation. Everything that once broke you begins to make sense. The pain that once felt meaningless starts revealing its purpose. The chaos that once consumed you becomes the fire that forged your strength. Transformation doesn't happen when life is kind. It happens when life burns away everything false, leaving only truth. The toxic family, the betrayal, the loneliness, they weren't your destruction, they were your initiation. Alan Watts once said, "The crack is where the light gets in." And that is exactly how awakening begins. Through the cracks. The more you resisted the pain, the more it chased you. But the moment you accepted it, it turned into power. You begin to see that your suffering made you wise, your solitude made you self-aware, and your heartbreak made you capable of deep compassion. You no longer carry shame for your wounds, because you now understand they were proof of your courage. Every scar became scripture, every breakdown became breakthrough, every shadow became teacher. That is transformation, not the absence of darkness, but the ability to turn it into light. The awakened soul becomes an alchemist of emotion, transforming resentment into forgiveness, anger into understanding, and fear into freedom. You stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "This happened for me." You realize that your family didn't shape your limits. They revealed your strengths. Without their pain, you would never have learned detachment. Without their rejection, you would never have found self-love. Without their chaos, you would never have discovered peace. That's the paradox of awakening. Pain births clarity, and suffering gives birth to wisdom. Transformation doesn't mean you forget your story. It means you reclaim it. You take every broken piece and build a masterpiece of awareness. You start helping others who are still trapped where you once were, not out of superiority, but empathy. You become the light you once prayed to find. You realize that darkness never truly existed. It was only the absence of understanding. Once the light of awareness enters, the shadows lose their power. You see now that the family that once wounded you also initiated your awakening. They were not your downfall, they were your doorway. The universe did not punish you with them, it prepared you through them. Your story is not one of suffering, but of evolution. You walked through fire and came out illuminated. You turned what was meant to break you into the reason you became unbreakable. That is the real transformation. When your pain no longer defines you, but refines you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My darkness made me light. So now, we arrive at the truth. The real reason awakened souls are born into toxic families. It's not karma, it's not curse, it's calling. The universe places the most conscious souls in the darkest places, not to destroy them, but to awaken them, because light is most powerful when it learns to shine through darkness. You were sent into that family not to be broken, but to become the one who ends the cycle. Every wound, every betrayal, every moment of silence shaped your awareness. You were the observer in the chaos, the calm in the storm, the consciousness born within confusion. And now you understand. You were never the victim of your family's pain. You were the healer of it, Alan Watts once said. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so simple, yet everyone rushes around in a panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. The awakened soul doesn't seek to escape pain. It learns to see through it. It learns that love without awareness becomes bondage, but awareness without love becomes emptiness. Balance is the key. Your family was the test, you were the answer. Their chaos was the challenge your soul accepted long before birth. You came to bring light where others only repeated darkness, and now, after walking through the fire, you stand as proof that awakening is possible even in the most painful beginnings. So, as this journey ends, remember, you were not sent to suffer. You were sent to awaken, not to break, but to become whole. If this message touched you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs healing, and subscribe for more deep reflections like this. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I was born to bring light.